S-Force is a very underrepresented deck in Master Duel, and I hope to bring some change to that with this in-depth guide on the S-Force archetype. In this video, we're going to be going over how this deck plays, alongside Diamond Rank gameplay footage to showcase what this deck is really capable of. Without further ado, let's get right into the guide. S-Force is a control-based deck much like Zombie World or Eldritch. Control-based decks rely on limiting your opponent's options with floodgates or interruptions. However, this deck has a very unique mechanic that not a lot of decks have: the column mechanic. The column mechanic allows for you to hinder your opponent's actions depending on if they are in the same column as your S-Force monster. Each S-Force monster has a column effect as well as a normal effect, so let's take a look at some of these S-Force monsters and their unique effects. For each monster, I'll be going over the column effect first, and then the additional effect second. First up is arguably the most important S-Force monster, Rappa Shiomaru. Its first effect is, each of your opponent's monsters in the same column as one of your S-Force monsters can only target that monster in the same column for attacks. Its secondary effect is a quick effect and is the effect that you'll be using most often in your duels. You can banish one S-Force card from your hand, return this card to the hand, and if you do, special summon one S-Force monster from your deck in defense position except S-Force Rappa Shiomaru. Second up, we have Edge Razor. Its first effect is, each of your opponent's monsters in the same column as one of your S-Force monsters cannot be used as material for the link summon of a link 3 or higher monster. Its second effect is, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can special summon one S-Force monster from your hand in attack position except S-Force Razor. So if you are going first, make sure to always summon this card and the other S-Force monster to column 2 and column 4 for maximum efficiency in blocking out your opponent's link plays. Next up, we have S-Force Gravitino. When a card in the same column as an S-Force monster leaves the field, it gets banished instead. Leaving the field includes back-to-hand effects as well, which will be relevant later in this video. His secondary effect is when he's normal or special summoned, you can add any S-Force card from your deck to your hand. This gives us deck search options for spells, traps, as well as monsters. At number 4, we have S-Force Platina. Any monster in the same column as an S-Force monster loses 600 attack. Also, when this card is normal or special summon, you can special summon one of your banished S-Force monsters, letting you trigger their effects as well. At number 5, we have S-Force Orifist. His column effect is that your opponent cannot target any of their own monsters in the same column of your S-Force monsters with card effects. I do wish this effect was cannot target any of our S-Force monsters, but that isn't the case. His additional effect allows you to destroy an opponent's monster when they activate an effect by banishing one S-Force card from our hand. At number 6, we have S-Force Dogtag. This card stops your opponent from activating their monster effects in the same column as your S-Force monsters during your main phase. His additional effect allows you to special summon this card from your hand when your opponent normal or special summons a monster if you control another S-Force monster. This comes in handy when you need another column locked up while you have other S-Force monsters on the field. Lastly, for the S-Force effect monsters, we have Professor Digamma. He is the least useful of the S-Force cards, but I decided to include him in. Each monster in a column of your S-Force monster cannot change battle positions. Also, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can target one monster your opponent controls and change its battle position. Next, let's move on to our extra deck monster. Although he is costly, he does come in handy and can single-handedly win you games. This card has 3 effects, and his first one prevents your opponent from summoning monsters to a zone this card points to, and notice how his link arrows point up in all 3 directions. His second effect is a quick effect where you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end phase, and then you can move that monster to a zone that card points to. His final effect is, at the start of the damage step, you can banish all monsters this card points to. That sums up the S-Force monster cards in Master Duel, but there is powerful unreleased support that is available in the TCG but has not come to Master Duel yet, and if it does, I'll be making a sequel to this guide here. Next, let's talk about the unique spells and trap cards that the S-Force archetype has to offer. Let's start with the field spell, which is our bread and butter, and we always want to see this card in our hand. This card, when activated, allows us to search any S-Force monster directly from our deck and add it to our hand. It has another effect where if a monster battles an S-Force monster in the same column, you can choose that S-Force monster to not be destroyed by that battle. The first effect is its main effect that we'll be using most often, and the second effect is usually triggered if your opponent doesn't read or if you have an S-Force Rappa Shiomaru on the field. Next up, we have S-Force Chase. This card targets face-up cards your opponent controls up to the number of S-Force monsters with different names and returns them to the hand. Pair this with Gravitino and you can banish monsters instead. Its additional effect is if an S-Force monster would banish a card from your hand to activate its effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. Our next card is pretty straightforward. S-Force Showdown has one of two effects that you can use. You can either choose to special summon an S-Force monster from your hand, or target one S-Force monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. And the last card to sum up all the S-Force cards available in Master Duel currently, we have S-Force Specimen. This card allows you to special summon an S-Force monster from your graveyard or banished pile and special summon it in the same column as one of your opponent's monsters. And it has an additional effect where you can banish this card and target one of your S-Force monsters and move it to another one of your main monster zones, but you can only use one of these effects once per turn. That about does it for all the S-Force cards available currently in Master Duel. Now let's talk about the strengths and weaknesses of this deck, and after that we will be looking at some S-Force games in Diamond. For our strengths, we're great at controlling the board and we can lock up columns with our S-Force monsters and put them under arrest. We play on our opponent's turn to our advantage with our main interruption being S-Force Chase and S-Force Gravitino. We have many ways to get cards in our hand with our pots, field spell, and other search cards. For our weaknesses, we do not want to go second, we rely on controlling multiple S-Force monsters to lock up our opponent's columns, and certain floodgates and hand traps stop us pretty hard, such as Rivalry of Warlords. Now that we got the boring stuff out of the way, let's hop into a match in Diamond and see what this deck is about, and we'll also go into a deck list right after this. Alright, so our opening hand is pretty good. I'm going to open up the Dimensional Fissure. If he chains Max C, then we know he has Max C. If he doesn't, then we're free from Max C. So we normal summon our Chiyomaru, banish our Gravitino, special summon Razor, special summon our Platina from hand with Razor's effect. And Platina gets out from the banished pile Gravitino. Gravitino adds our trap card Chase, and Chase is actually able to return monsters to the hand, and we have the reinforcements. So if our opponent summons in the same column as us, we can actually flip up Chase and banish their monsters. So let's see if he reads our monsters. Okay, he adds Moye, classic. Okay, Pot of Avarice draws 2. Nothing too crazy. He's going to summon Moye, activate, reveal, and special summon token. So he's a second Moye in hand. I do Reinforce Truth just to special summon a Chiyomaru in his lane, in his column, so that way when we use Chase, he gets banished instead of being sent to the hand. So he summons a token. Let's see if he special summons to the right column all the way on the left here. Gets Grandmaster. Yep, so he is reading Grandmaster, but luckily our Chiyomaru can special summon to that column as well. So let's wait for his strategist. He has to summon to our lane. I waited, so now I activate Chiyomaru to summon something to the Grandmaster's lane. Now, when we use Chase, we can return up to 3 to the hand, but since they're in the lane of a S-Force monster, they get banished. So we just banished his entire board, no Barone, no Grandmaster. He used his normal summon, so in this deck, the only card that he can probably summon at all would be either Tenyi, Protoss, or something like that. Alright, so he has nothing, he has 1 set down. If it's Blackout, it does nothing because he doesn't have a Worm monster on his field. So now we're just going to summon into, and he quits, yep. Alright, so let's get into the deck list right here. Alright guys, here's the deck list that I have. So right here I have 3 Chiyomaru, 1 Orifice, 2 Razor, 3 Gravitino, and 3 Platina. We have 2 Kaijus, Nibiru, Feather Duster, Reinforcements of the Army, Terraforming, 3 Pot of Prosperity, 3 S-Force Bridgehead, 3 Dimensional Fissure, 2 Reinforced Truth, 2 Infinite Impermanence, 1 S-Force Specimen, 3 S-Force Chase, 2 Solemn Judgments, and 3 Mind Drain. And for extra deck, it doesn't really matter. I recommend having Unicorn and the Access Code line just in case, but I don't have Unicorn, so I didn't add it, but you want the S-Force Justify as much as you can just in case, or maybe just one is fine since you have Pot of Prosperity, but the rest doesn't really matter. Phoenix, Cerberus is helpful, Access Code, and the Unicorn. Alright, thank you guys for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below what you guys think about it. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, bye bye.